Of course, there are some people whose names have been immortalized by history, to long live after their departure. Then there are those anonymous pioneers whose accomplishments, good and bad, changed the course of history, but whose names remained, for the most part, unknown to us. Whether deliberately or coincidentally, there are some people whose contributions have not been recorded in history, although they have changed the shape of the world as we know it. Let's see together 8 characters that changed the world, but you didn't hear about them. From these characters, Niels Pullen. He came up with a revolutionary design that saved millions of lives. Seatbelt in the car in its current form. The simple waistband has been widespread for a long time in cars, but the 3-point mounted seatbelt came as a great technological advance with a very simple design. Pullen received a patent for the design the following year. The first vehicle to be issued with a 3-point belt was Volvo. The company subsequently renounced the patent for the benefit of other companies to preserve the lives and safety of drivers, making the new belt essential in various new cars around the world. Fetal Farnsworth. In 1927, enable. From broadcasting a picture of a straight line through the air. By 1929, he had developed his design and was able to broadcast a picture of his wife, which was very exciting, even if the picture was a little blurry. Although his design was called the image analyst, he had come up with the invention of television. Henry Dunant. The Swiss Henry Dunant was the first to receive Nobel Peace Prize. In 1901, Frederick Base, a businessman and social activist, went through Salvarino, Italy, in 1859, during the Second Italian War of Independence, dismayed by the suffering and tragedies he witnessed as a result of the war. In 1862, he published a book called The Memory of Salvarino, describing efforts to care for those injured during battles, and proposing a new plan. It was suggested that the countries of the world form their own relief societies to care for the wounded and train volunteers in the best ways to treat them. He also wanted governments to ensure the treatment of wounded soldiers, and to provide safe passage for doctors and volunteers treating them. Maurice Hilleman. Develop a number of vaccines for different diseases. For example, he developed a vaccine for mumps, after his daughter was infected in 1963. He took a sample from the back of her throat, then went to the lab, figured out a way to develop the vaccine we use today, but not only stopped at this. Maurice Hilleman has single-handedly developed more than 40 different vaccines, including 8 that are commonly administered to children to prevent diseases such as measles, mumps, hepatitis A and B, chickenpox, meningitis, pneumonia and hemophilia. Lewis Latimer. The son of one of the fugitive slaves George Warbeck Latimer was the drafter who helped Alexander Graham Bell patent his phone in 1876. That's impressive, but that's not all. Latimer patented a light bulb that lasted longer than Thomas Edison's at the time. Thomas Edison had invented the light bulb, which usually consisted of a glass bulb surrounding bristles of carbon wire, often made of bamboo, paper or thread. But the problem was that the lamp had a small lifespan, because carbon bristles were rapidly burned, usually lasting a few days. But Latimer has devised a way to wrap bristles inside a cardboard casing that prevented carbon bristles from burning quickly and thus increased the lamp's life, making the lamps less expensive and more efficient. Not only that, but Latimer was a leader in the electrical lighting industry, and a member of the Edison Pioneers Charter, a distinct group of people who worked near Edison to develop electrical lighting. James Harrison. James Harrison saved the lives of more than 2 million newborns. Known as the man with the golden arm, his blood produces rare antibodies, which treat the deadly disease of unborn children known as Rhesus disease. James donated his blood 1173 times, a world record in Guinness. It is estimated that James' donations with his blood saved almost all of his lives. 2.4 million children. Henrietta Lacks. She was a poor Virginia farmer, whose death was only noticed by her children, family and friends. But Henrietta is a source of the cellular strain known as HeLa. Her blood had unique timeless cells, which could live outside her body forever. After the birth of her fifth child in 1951, Henrietta was detained at Johns Hopkins University Hospital, complaining of a node in the womb, and took. Doctors sample her tissue. They soon noticed that unlike normal cells, Henrietta's cells did not die a few days later, but continued to grow, doubling every 20 to 24 hours. Henrietta's cells are found in billions in scientific laboratories around the world. For researchers to use in the study of cancers, as well as hemophilia, influenza, leukemia, and Parkinson's disease. It also used its cells in the development of polio vaccine, cancer drug tamoxifen, chemotherapy, genetic mapping, and a full range of other uses. Alfred Russel Wallace. One of the people who changed the world. After recovering from a bout of malaria fever on the remote Indonesian island of Halmahera, the young British biologist came up with an idea that would change humanity's self-perception. He developed the theory of natural selection. Alfred Wallace wrote his idea and sent it to Charles Darwin, who had been working in the same field and contemplating a similar evolution theory for more than a decade, hoping Darwin would help him disseminate his theory. But when Darwin read Wallace's theory, he was horrified. He wrote his own theory in haste. Both copies are sent to members of the Linnean Scientific Society in 1858.